What's going on, traders? Few things to talk about. We're going to go over the NASDAQ, Triple Q, SPY, ES, and then we're going to go over what institutions are doing when it comes to the Triple Qs and SPY. Before we start, like, subscribe, comment your thoughts below. Let's get into the video. So, right now we're looking at the NASDAQ 4-hour time frame, and as you guys can see, we are forming a bear flag. Now, does this mean we're heading towards the downside or we're going to crash or correction or anything like that? I wouldn't say just yet, right? We still need more confirmation. But one thing we are seeing right now, and this is a key level that we talked about in the last video, is we're breaking back below 23,650 on the NASDAQ. And so what I mean by that is that you're breaking back within the range of these guys right here. Hopefully you guys can see this, but you have this massive bearish engulfing candle, right? And it didn't quite play out, but still, you see clear as day that bears are very much present within this area right here. And so, ideally, if you are bullish, you want to see us reclaim 23,650 and possibly bounce off this trend line here, right? But as long as we stay below 23,650, it's very much possible that we head back towards 23,500, 23,400. Now, does that mean we're going to correct or crash or anything like that? Wouldn't say just yet. What I would like to see, or if you're bullish, what you would like to see is a bounce from here. So, what I mean by that is that you want to see a bounce from this supply and demand zone right here. And if we manage to bounce from here, you also want to see a break retest of this trend. Then from there, you're heading towards 23,800, right where these guys are. And if you manage to break retest again, you can head as high as 24K, which is basically new highs. So that's what you want to see if you're bullish, which is a pretty significant move. So again, even if we do bounce from here, what you want to see is a reclaim of these guys right here. You want to stop these guys out of their position. Until that happens, I wouldn't jump for joy just yet if you are a bull. Okay. Until we break, retest, and actually stop these guys out of their position, you wouldn't want to jump the gun and just assume that we're just heading towards all time highs. If we manage to get these guys out of here, yeah, we might just go crazy. Okay. So that's what we're looking at if we are talking about a bullish scenario. Now, if we're talking about a bear scenario, I think it goes without saying. You see a break, retest of 23,450, 23,400, more or less. And then from there, you're heading much lower, possibly towards the low 23,000s. We won't talk about that until we get more confirmation. Okay, so that's what you're looking. Those are your bullish and bear scenarios. Now, for those of you who are new to the channel, you're wondering why we need to reclaim this, this line right here. We go to the weekly time frame, set the charts here. We go to the weekly time frame, and as you guys can see, we've been respecting this trend line for quite some time, right? We rejected here, rejection here, rejection here, rejection here, and we zoom in and we somewhat broke above this trend line. This is something we've been talking about in the past few videos where you're probably going to play games not only on the NQ but the ES as well. We'll go over the ES in a bit. So you're probably going to play games here for quite some time until, whatever news happens that either breaks us further to the upside or break us back towards the downside, right? So far, it's not looking too bad, but it's not looking great either. We're starting to see those cracks show up. Okay. ES 6400. Okay. 6400 is what you want to see here on hold on the ES for those of you who trade futures, right? If you go to the 4-hour time frame, once again, you have a bear flag. Okay. You do not want to see this break if you are looking to be bullish. Now, for those of you who are doubting the trend line that I've drawn and think I've made it up, as you guys can see, we're bouncing clean off of it so far. We're not getting that bullish candle, but so far we're trying to hold it. Okay. We go to the weekly time frame. And like I've been saying in the past few videos, right? You're probably going to play games here for quite some time, maybe until the end of August, maybe middle of August. Pretty close to the middle of August, maybe till September. I don't know. But as you guys can see, if we look in the past, we've been, breaking above it, breaking back below it. Right here, we break above it, we break below it, formed a double top, and then we broke the neckline at around 5,800. Got our tariff news, market ended up correcting, and then we V-shaped recovery back towards the upside. And now we're back within this area all over again. Okay, so again, like I said before, like I've said multiple videos, you're probably going to play games here. And I wouldn't even be surprised you break back below this trend line and do it all over again. Okay. Even if you break below the trend line, it's not to say that we're going to tank or correct towards the downside. It's just to say that, you shouldn't be surprised that this happened. You've seen it happen over and over in the past. Okay. So your key level here is 6,400. You're seeing bulls just actively fight for this. By the time this video comes out, I don't know where it's going to be. But as long as bulls are trying to hold 6,400, it's really tough to say that we're going to tank or correct towards the downside. I imagine we're probably waiting on data tomorrow, maybe CPI data, maybe tariff news, maybe the Fed member speaking, because we do have a few Fed members speaking tomorrow. But regardless, as long as 6,400 holds on the ES, you I would say you're okay. Okay. You're not great, but you're okay. Okay. Now, if we go back to the 4 hour time frame here, if we can manage to get a bounce here, okay, as you guys can see, we rejected this area here at around 64.30. We talked about that level in the last video. But if you can get above 64.30, then you're looking at a move towards 64.50. So you want to see a break, retest. You want to see us get in this zone right here. And then from there, you're heading towards 64.50. And then from there, you want to see another break, retest. And then from there, you're looking at 6500. Okay, so those are your key levels when it comes to upside if you are looking to be bullish. Now, if you are bearish or looking to be bearish, then 6370 is your key level towards the downside. But I will say this much, there's a lot going on down here. There's a lot. Okay, so obviously you're going to need some really, really bad news for us to like really break through this area because there's a lot of turbulence here. Okay, um, 6370, 6350. Right, you see a lot of bullish wicks here. You see a lot of turbulence here. But if you get below 6,300, you're very, very illiquid, guys. Very illiquid. So even if we break below 6,400 and just manage to hold, right, you just have a lot to deal with between 6,370 and 6,350. So, it's not the end of the world yet if you break below 6,400 and okay, so we'll see. Okay. But that's what I'm looking at when it comes to ES and NQ. Hopefully it made sense. Now, for those of you who just focus on ETFs, SPY. All right, so we talk about the SPY levels all the time. There is a bear flag here on the SPY as well. Like I said, you're going to see these all across the board, right? But you do have a bear flag here as well. And right now you're at the bottom of it, right? You're right at the bottom of it, okay, when it comes to the SPY. So you really want to see this hold if you are looking to be bullish. You actually want to see a bounce here if you're looking to be bullish. Now, a scenario that can happen here is that you form some type of bear trap, right? But we don't have real confirmation of that just yet until it actually happens. But you could just, break below it, hit 633. 633 is a key level, and then you just break back in here. Boom, you start heading towards some crazy all-time high levels. You're talking about 645, 650. Okay. And I did say in one video that I do believe that 650 is very much possible, especially if you manage to hold 630 on the SPY. If you hold 630 on the SPY, where these bullish wicks are, there's a lot of bullish wicks in this area. If you manage to hold 630 on the SPY, I still think 650 is very much possible here. So that's what we're looking at for the SPY. So if you are bullish, what you want to see is either a bounce from here or a bounce within this range in general between 633, 635. Okay. If you manage to bounce from here, what you want to see next is for us to get above these guys right here at around 642. I want to say. So let's see. Yeah, about 642. You get above these guys, you want to see a break. You guys get the idea. You want to see a break and retest, and then from there, obviously 650 table. Now, your bearish scenario, again, like I said on the ES, there's just a lot to deal with on the downside. So I imagine you're going to need some bad news. Okay. You're going to need some really bad news. I don't know if it's going to be CPI. I imagine CPI is going to come in hotter than expected, but it doesn't necessarily matter if it comes in hotter than expected because we've seen what the market does when with bad news. It dips and then immediately it rockets back towards the upside. So maybe CPI is priced in already. Maybe this dump towards the downside was it being priced in? We don't know. But at the end of the day, you don't want to jump the gun. You don't want to assume that we're just going to tank towards the downside from here until you start breaking major levels. And those major levels are 625. Like I've been saying in multiple videos, you break below 625, you open up the floodgates to 620. You break below 620, 618, guys. All right, you open up the floodgates towards 613. I know it's kind of chaotic, guys. I'm sorry, but 613, 608. All right, are your key levels, your major, your final bosses. These are your key levels when it comes to a potential correction, in my opinion. Okay, so again, for now, as long as you're holding 633, I would say you're okay. Even if you break below 633, you just want to see 630 hold. If you break below 630, then you might want to start. You want to be a little panicky, and then from there, 625. All right, you break below 625, that's when you start jumping ship, in my opinion. All right, you do what you want with this information. You're here for a reason, whether it's to gather information or to troll. It doesn't necessarily matter, but what you do with the information is all up to you. So again, you got this bear flag. I didn't even talk about the measured move for these bear flags. So if you're talking about the measured move for these bear flags, all right, keyword if these manage to play out, what you do is you bring it to the original breaking point and you're talking about a move towards crazy enough 613. 613 is your projected move if this bear flag decides to play out. Isn't it crazy how that works out, right? The measured move is all the way to 613 if you manage, and if, okay, keyword is if you manage to break below this bear flag convincingly. All right, so that's what we're looking at when it comes to the SPY. All right, I think I talked about both directions. Okay, so triple Qs again, you got a bear flag here as well, right? Um, so boom. I mean, it's clear as day. You don't really I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to not be able to see this, but here, right, might be a little bit off. I'm not looking to be perfection or anything like that, but here and here, right? You can argue that this is a rising channel, bull flag, bear flag. It doesn't necessarily matter. Regardless, you guys get the point, right? And then if you're talking about the measured move here, once again, the projected measured move. So if we manage to break here, crazy enough, we talked about this level 545. Okay, 545 and 540. We talked about 540 now. All right, but at that point, I do imagine you're going to head towards 540, okay, if you get below 550. So that's the projected move for both the SPY and triple Q's bear flag. Again, but what you want to see here is obviously 570 hold on the triple Q's. If you manage to give up 570 and you get within the range of these guys right here or this fair value gap here, then you're looking at a move towards 568. You give up 568, you want to see 566 hold. Okay, you want to see 566 hold. That is your main level. That is the gatekeeper. Okay, you give up 566. All right, it gets a little scary. Okay, it gets a little scary. So, what do we want to see? All right, we want to see 566 hold on the triple Qs. We want to see 530 hold on the SPY. Okay, get below those, start opening up some pretty dangerous floodgates. Okay, so we'll see. Okay, we will see. But again, when you go to this triple Qs, what you want to see here, if you are looking to be bullish, all right. You want to see a bounce from here, and it doesn't even have to bounce from here. You can head a little bit lower, maybe set up some type of bear trap. Yeah, bear trap. You know, you bounce back towards the upside, you break, retest, you reclaim 575. Boom, you're heading towards 580, 585. I don't know. You're just heading towards some crazy levels at that. You want to stop these guys out of their position right here. Okay, so around actually 578. You want to stop these guys out of their position, and then from there, new highs, obviously. Okay, so that's what you want to see when it comes to the triple Qs. Now, if we look at quant data, crazy enough, um, well, I guess we'll go over this first. SMH, okay, SMH. So this is pretty insane. A lot of SMH puts came in, guys. A lot of SMH puts. Okay, so this morning at 10:29 Eastern, 10:29, 10:30 Eastern time. You see the date here, August 11th. Today is August 11th. SMH, okay, September 12th is the expiration, and you see all these 285 strike puts. They were loaded up. So far, they're in profit, okay, because I think SMH is like 293 right now. They were loaded up at 296.84, around 296, 297 range. And as you guys can see, the premiums is 1.49 million, 2.16 million. You guys get the idea. All right. Hoping you guys can read. And then they were loaded up at the ask. And they are bearish. Okay. The sentiment is bearish. So something you want to pay attention to. We'll go over SMH in a bit. But another thing that's interesting, and I showed Discord members this, is that when you scroll down, there's a lot of calls being sold. Like a lot of like look at this. All these triple Q calls are being sold. Okay. Now they're for January 20th, 2026. Maybe we can take this with a grain of salt, but it's just something you should not take lightly. Okay. You should not take lightly. So a lot of calls were sold today. A lot of calls. Okay. Again, they're for next year you know so do your own research, but again, that's something I would not take lightly. But as you guys can see, there's nothing, I mean, there's really nothing here but calls being sold or even puts being sold, and there's very minimum puts being sold in comparison to calls. So something interesting now. Another thing that's interesting that came in, okay, another thing that's interesting that came in, all right, so you guys don't think I only focus on the bearish stuff. Spy calls. August 29th, 647 strike spy calls, loaded up at 637.55. They're not in profit, but as you guys can see, the premium is 3.58 million and the sentiment is bullish. All right. Still some time on these. Okay. So for those of you who are like, they're getting crushed, they're getting destroyed, and all that, for all you day traders who don't think people swing trade and drawbacks don't happen during swing trading, these still are potentially in play. All right. Do the research yourself. But as you guys can see, the quantity 10,831. Again, they were loaded up at 637. Expiration, you get the idea. Do your screenshot, do what you got to do. Okay. They were loaded up at 9:40 Eastern time this morning. So originally they were in profit because the SPY pumped to like 639, 638, something like that. And then it tanked towards the downside. But very possible that these still can play out. We'll have to wait and see. But this is interesting. Okay, this is very, very interesting. And it kind of aligns with my idea that SPY still has the potential to head towards 650. We'll see. Okay, we will see. August 29th. By August 29th, you got like 2, 3 weeks left. So that's something you want to pay attention to as well. But again, like I said, a lot of calls were sold today. I don't think those calls specifically were sold, the SPY calls. But you see here 618 strike puts as well. Right. that's something you want to pay attention to. But yeah, that's about it. All right, screenshot, do what you got to do. Do your own research, look into these plays. I'm trying to see if I can see anything else, but that's about it, guys. All right, so that's what we got on quant data. For those of you who ask me about quant data, I'm just trying to get back into the rhythm of talking about quant data. By the way, quant data is order flow, guys. All right, if you're not trading with order flow, I don't know how you do it. Okay, I really don't. Trading without order flow is like trading half blind, right? But that's just me. Okay, everybody trades like all the big guys, any big trader you find on YouTube, and I mean like champion type traders and things like that. They use order flow. They use this stuff. Okay, so yeah, you might want to invest into order flow, but you can get it for free if you join our Discord. All right, so it's on you. Other than that, let's talk about some stocks real quick. Okay, let's talk about some stocks. I think we triple Q spy. Yeah. Okay. So actually, let's go over Bitcoin and then we'll get into some stocks. Sorry, Bitcoin. All right, Bitcoin. So crazy enough, I talked about Bitcoin and Ethereum last video, and the bots didn't come. So I don't know what triggers them. Take a day, I guess they took a day off. But regardless, so when it comes to Bitcoin, 18,800 is your key level. So far, you're holding it. You're not holding it very convincingly, but you're somewhat holding it. So 18,800, as you guys can see, we broke down. We're somewhat bouncing off of it. I guess it's not a convincing bounce, but this is something you want to pay attention to. Again, like I said, as long as Bitcoin holds 112K, 130K is on the table, guys. 130K. All right. I know it sounds crazy, but hey, I've called crazier levels and they hit. Okay. So as long as this level holds, you can possibly head higher. Now, this is not something you want to see. All right. This is not something you want to see. So worst case scenario, at least I wouldn't even call it the worst case scenario. It could be a lot worse if you get below 112K. But worst case scenario here, at the minimum, you just retest this trend line at around 117K and then you want to see a break test back towards the upside at around 120K. It's another scenario. All right. That is one scenario. Now, worst case scenario, like the terrible case, is 112K. You break below 112K, you're heading towards 108, 109K. Right. So again, you want to see Bitcoin hold this level here, 11800. Um, this is this is not something I like right here. Okay. A lot of bearish wicks up here. It's not surprising. So yeah, this is not ideal on a daily time frame. So you want to pay attention to this, guys. Don't trade against this. Okay. We'll see. All right. So that's Bitcoin. Coin. A lot of you've been asking me about coin. A lot of you been DMing me, blowing me up about coin. Um, I mean, it did a good portion of its move, 335. I like I said, what I want to see right here is coin reclaim this trend line here. Like I told Discord members, I think coin has the potential to head towards 345. 360, but it's all relying on Bitcoin. If Bitcoin tanks, then obviously coin is going to tank. So when you guys ask me about like stocks that follow crypto, you just focus on the crypto, honestly. So coin looks good. Like coin in itself, if it wasn't, a thing that follows Bitcoin, I would say this thing looks great for calls. But since it follows Bitcoin, if it manages to break back below this trend, at that point it's heading towards 310. Okay. And then from there, we'll have to wait and see what happens. But 310 and then lowest you're looking at is about 280s, right where these guys are. So coin looks okay right now. You have this inverse head and shoulders pattern. However, the projected move for this inverse head and shoulders pattern already played out. All right. What I mean by that, if you're new to patterns or you're interested in patterns, maybe you're not, I don't care. But regardless, the measure move here, boom, measure from the shoulder to the head. You bring that measurement to the neckline, and yeah, fine. All right. Majority of the move, about 335. Wait, how high did it go? Yeah, 335. So 338 is the measured move. Very possible you see maybe a bounce from here, but ultimately, pay attention to Bitcoin. All right. Plain and simple. All right. Again, you have this inverse head and shoulders pattern. These guys right here, they might give you hell, but highest you're looking at for coin, I said this in the Discord, is 360. 360. At least highest for me. Okay. Highest for me, 360. It sounds crazy, but you have this gap fill all the way up here, right? But again, what you want to see is us just get stop these guys out. All right. So once you get above 338, sky's the limit on coin. This thing can go crazy. I'm talking about like 400, maybe even like 500. This thing can go crazy. All right. We'll talk about it in the future if it gets there. But for now, you definitely want to see, let's zoom out. You definitely want to see this trend hold. All right. You really, really want to see this thing hold. All right. Really, really want to see it hold if you're looking to be trade coin. All right. Apple. So Apple did the projected move I expected. I wanted to go to, well, not wanted it. That sounds crazy, right? 230. 230 was my target. Can Apple head higher? Yes. I think Apple can head towards 235. Assuming that it, I guess, ignores the market because it's been doing that lately, and assuming it just, or even assuming the market pumps. But right now, you're breaking above this trend on the daily time frame. Rejection here, rejection here. I told Discord members, worst case scenario is that you retest 220. Right? You never retested 220 on Apple. All right. So we did take a risky trade today. We ended up in profit on Apple calls. But yeah, we jumped into. I'll look it up later. But we jumped into 240, yeah, 240 strike calls at like 0.34. Very cheap play, and then we took profit at 0.50. Source, trust me, bro. All right, but other than that, um, like I said in the Discord, worst case scenario, when we jumped into that play, we ended up profiting, so it's fine. But worst case scenario is what that we just do one of these, boom, and then boom. All right. So again, we might retest this area here. Your key level here is 224, 225 psych level, and you manage to break below 224. You're headed towards 220, 219, more or less. You give up 219, then we'll talk about that if it happens. Okay. So for now, I think Apple can head much higher. I'm looking at 235, 240 range, somewhere around there. If we're being crazy, if we're being optimistic, if that market just goes ballistic for some reason, like it just blow off top, melts up, whatever you want to call it, 260 on Apple. All right. So I'm a firm believer in Apple right now. Okay. I know I down talked it for quite some time, but since earnings, I've been pretty bullish on Apple. Okay. Since earnings, I've been pretty bullish on Apple. So I do think Apple has the potential to see a lot more upside from here. It's just a matter of finding your entries and when these moves will happen. So again, 220 possible retest, 225, 224, right where these guys are is a good buying point, I would say. All right. There's a lot of bulls in this area. So that's the worst case scenario. That's like the minimum worst case scenario for Apple. The worst case is 220, maybe a gap fill at 215. We'll see. All right. So that's what I'm looking at for Apple. I forgot to go over Dow Jones, but Dow Jones, I'm not a fan of right now. Dow Jones is just I can't tell where Dow Jones is trying to go. What I will say is that when it comes to upside, I mean, when it comes to downside, I think Dow Jones is trying to head back down here to 433, 432, right where these guys are. So you bounced here, you rejected here, you rejected here, you bounced here, you consolidated here, you rejected here. So this is a very very key level. Um, so it's looking like these guys right here. We zoom in on a daily time frame. It's looking like these guys right here are trying to really push the Dow Jones down. The Dow Jones has the potential to be a leading indicator. If it's not, um, it has the potential to be a leading indicator. So if Dow Jones is tanking before the SPY and triple Qs, you want to be careful there. Okay, you really want to be careful. If it's pumping before them, then you want to be careful. I know a lot of people focus on like Bitcoin being a leading indicator, but Dow Jones is slept on. Sometimes I even sleep on it, right? Because I don't really trade Dow Jones, and I'm not a heavy investor into Dow Jones. I'm a heavy investor into tech stocks, right? I do have a few names under Dow Jones, of course, but I'm really heavily invested into um, tech names. So regardless, Dow Jones is looking like it wants to head further down. As you guys see, rejection here, rejection here, rejection here, rejection here. You broke up. Bulls got trapped here. Bear stepped in. Boom, you broke down. You created a lower low here. You're creating. We go to the 4 hour time frame. You're creating lower lows on the 4 hour time frame. You already created a lower low. You're just looking for that other lower low. You have a gap fill all the way at 429 as well. That would be your lower low. So yeah, um, Dow Jones is probably the scariest name out of all of them right now, in my opinion. It just looks scary. Okay, so that's what we're looking at for the Dow Jones. I believe that's it. Discord. A lot of plays came in for the Discord. Interesting enough, today we saw 638 strike puts come in. I want to say, yeah, 9:58 a.m. Eastern time this morning. So these are in profit. We saw SPY tank all the way to like 634, 635. So congratulations, Discord members, on that play. We saw another thing we saw was triple Q puts, 573 puts come in at 10:12 Eastern time as well. We saw triple Q's tank all the way to about 571 since these was alerted at around 575. So yeah, pretty beautiful play there. And then another interesting thing that came in is SPX strike puts as well, 6,200 strike puts expiration this week. Now the premiums are pretty low. This could easily be a hedge, so take it with a grain of salt, but it is something you want to keep in the back of your mind. Um, Apple 240 strike calls, so this kind of leans towards what we were talking about. The premiums are low as well, so it could be a hedge. Okay, and then last but not least, VIX calls. Big 17 strike calls came in today at around 3 Eastern time. So this could be hinting what's going to happen with CPI data or maybe some other news this week. I don't know, but this is something you want to pay attention to. Speaking of the VIX, I don't know what to expect here because I haven't looked at the VIX in a bit. All right, so VIX right now is hitting this trend line. As you guys can see, it's rejecting this, not rejecting, but it's kind of respecting this trend line here. But 17 is a very pivotal point here. 17.3 high as you're looking at right now. Lower high, lower high, lower high. Right. So if VIX is going to break within this range, I do imagine that's where it's going to head around 17.3. 17.3. There's a gap here at 15.4. So it's very much possible that the market, even if the VIX does spike back towards the upside, right, it's very much possible that market can pump all over again after whatever happens tomorrow or the rest of this week. That's what you want to pay attention to. So, other than that, that's all I have, guys. Pay attention to the levels. Be careful trading tomorrow. We do have a lot of news tomorrow, or a lot of news this week. Actually, we have CPI data at 8:30 Eastern time. All right, so you want to be careful here, and then you have a few FOMC members speaking as well. Other than that, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Discord link will be in the description below as well. If you're looking to get babysitted or anything like that, when the Discord, you're looking for me to tell you every single move that you need to make. I don't do that. Okay, I don't do that. We're here to work together. Obviously, you can ask questions and things like that. That's what you're paying for. You're asking for. That's what you're paying for. Questions, things like that, information. To help you be a better trader. But ultimately, come in automatically knowing how to trade. A lot of you'll be surprised how many people join Discord and they're like, "How do you trade?" And I'm just like, "What?" like. So yeah. That's other than that, that's all I have. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Until the next video, traders. Have a good one.